I was thinking of this song recently from my youth in the 90s by the New Radicals. It was their only real hit. I'm sure some big New Radicals fan is going to argue with me about that, but I think they're firmly in the one-hit wonder category. But it's a really good hit. The music video is also super 90s. It's in a mall, which is, I can't think of anything more 90s than in a mall, right? As you just heard, though, it's an anthem of hope, I think, in its own ways. I think we removed some of the church inappropriate language from that version, but you heard the good parts. The best line from it, in my opinion, the line that's stuck in my head for 25 years now, is, "Wake up, kids, we've got the dreamer's disease." And as I think you can tell from the rest of the song, the dreamer's disease is the idea that we have the power of creativity, the ability to dream so big that our dreams can change the world. Dreams that are huge, and some of them are impossible. And we also simultaneously have the knowledge that dreams, like sleep, do come to an end at some point. And that many dreams are just dreams, that they will fade away in time. So the dreamer's disease is power and challenge all in one. To imagine things that amazing and to simultaneously deal with the reality that many of them will never happen. And for some people, that's a very troubling notion. For me, it's a really empowering one. I think they're both true. Like so many of the most powerful forces on our planet, there's positives and negatives here. We know that water makes life as we know it possible, but too little or too much water is also deadly or devastating. Rain makes the plants grow, but floods destroy. Sunlight similarly provides the energy that makes virtually all life as we know it possible, but too much sunlight is deadly too. In our human economic systems, money makes our society possible, but too little money is poverty, and too much doesn't seem like it has a very good effect on you either, honestly, judging by the people who I know have a lot of it. But that's a whole nother sermon, I think. So Greg Alexander, who's the lead singer and songwriter of the New Radicals, in that particular line, he says, we've got the dreamer's disease. A lot of the rest of the song is addressed to the listener, to you, but in that opening phrase, it's we, making it clear that we are all in this together, that we have the dreamer's disease. Which means, again, we have the power both individually and collectively to dream of better things, to dream of peace and prosperity and health and a better world for all. So we're in this thing together. And I think, therefore, that one of the keys is another line in the song, "Don't let go," repeated over and over. We cannot let go of optimism and hope and strength and resilience and support for one another. So later in our service, we're going to sing another song I really love, "Come Sing a Song With Me." I'm going to reference it ahead of time so you'll be ready for it. Its best line, in my opinion, is, "I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find." And this time, this everything in our world right now has me thinking a lot about that too. Where is hope coming to me? Who is bringing it to me when it's hard to find? And how can I be the one to bring hope to others? All right, so I got a story, and stay with me because it's a little long, but I promise it's good. All fellowship UU ministers do something as part of our training called CPE, which is Clinical Pastoral Education, which is 3 longish words that basically mean a chaplaincy internship. Many of these are done in hospitals, or some are in prisons or retirement homes. Think of a place where you might expect a chaplain to be, and that's sort of what we're talking about usually. These internships are about 400 hours, so a summer or part-time over the course of a year, interacting with people and talking and doing group reflections with other people doing this internship, and meeting with a supervisor to review the work you're doing. I did my CPE at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Boston, which is a large community hospital serving a diverse urban, semi-urban area. And unlike many hospitals now, this used to be more common, but is less common these days, St. Elizabeth's had two of their units were ones that, again, are not that common in hospitals today, and they were the ones I was assigned to. So one of them was a 72-hour detox unit for people with substance abuse issues. The other one was a locked psychiatric unit for people experiencing severe mental health crises. And in both cases, most of the people there were there because it was either that or go to jail, right? That was their options. A court had judged that they were a danger to themselves or to others. So these were serious, often somber places, with a lot of people experiencing some of the very worst days of their lives. And the goal in virtually every case I saw was to stabilize the patient enough to transfer them to a situation where longer-term care could be provided. So another medical facility, sometimes a halfway house of some sort, occasionally even going home with outpatient treatment planned. And I tell you all of this because I saw a lot of people struggling with all sorts of issues, but among them acute and chronic depression. And that was true in both units. The thing that people who work in those places know that most people don't is that an incredibly large percentage of patients in the detox unit have serious mental health issues and could easily be in the other unit, and a very large percentage of patients in the psychiatric unit are also struggling either now or at some point in their lives with substance abuse. So some of that has to do with self-medicating, that people are using alcohol or drugs to attempt to cope with serious mental issues. The other reality is that long-term substance abuse can contribute to worsening mental health. So I spent a lot of time talking to patients, or actually mostly listening to patients. I ran group sessions in which we talked about things like religion and spirituality and whether and how they could be potential sources of strength for these people who very much needed whatever they could get in terms of help. In fact, if you were here a couple months ago when I preached, we talked a lot in these group sessions about things like the spiritual toolbox I spoke about 2 months ago, about all the tools that might be helpful in recovery and daily life. So I had a session with my supervisor during this time. I had a number of sessions, but one of them in particular. He was both an ordained minister and a licensed psychologist, so a really interesting guy. And he talked specifically this day about working with patients with depression, because I had just talked to someone who was severely depressed. And so we talked about, in addition to medicine, which can work miracles, in addition to things like therapy, he said he had one particular practice he did with every patient he talked to who had depression, and it had been foolproof. It always worked. Sometimes it worked a little bit, sometimes it worked a lot, so it varied, but it always worked to some degree. And he recommended that I could use this in my work with people with depression. You may know this, but depressed people often struggle to do anything. They're so overcome by the depression they can't find the energy to start to do anything, to even get out of bed many days. And this isn't a question of willpower or of happiness or sadness or of not wanting to be better. And sometimes these are the things you hear. None of that's really true or relevant. It's just that they can't. Their brain chemistry is not allowing that at the moment. So we do things like medicine to help with that. But again, the thing he recommended I do was this. He said, whenever I'm talking to a patient with depression, I ask one question. Do you remember a time when you were not depressed? And the answer, in hundreds of cases, all of them except one, which I'll get to in a second, he said every single patient had said yes. And just so you aren't left wondering, in that one other case where someone said they could not remember a time when they were not depressed, he said, well, do you remember a time when you were less depressed than you are now? And they said, oh yeah, of course, great. He's like, I can work with that, that's fine. So the follow-up to that question was, what were you doing in that time? How were things different? Is there anything from that time that you could bring to your life now? And the wild thing is that this works. If depressed people can think about a time when they were less depressed and bring anything from that time into now, it can help. Again, sometimes a little bit. Sometimes it's not world-changing. In fact, usually it's not. It doesn't work perfectly or instantly. It doesn't work forever, but it helps. And this sounds so simple and so basic that I was really dismissive of it at first. That the idea that all I have to do is think of a time when things were better, when I was happier, and tried to do the things I was doing then, that it sounds silly. It's so simple. And yet it's effective. To bring things back that have worked for us, to hold on to good stuff from the past and use it in the present works. For people struggling with depression, just asking these questions and getting them to think about that, asking these questions from outside their own mind, can help provide a spark that they need. Not the only thing they need, but something. And I say this because you and I individually, and perhaps even collectively many of us together, can't necessarily change world conditions for the better, at least not quickly or easily. I'm not sure there's any single act I can go do to stop a war in Iran, for instance. Though maybe together we could do something about that over time and with work. And I also say that I don't particularly want to recreate the past, as nostalgic as I am about, say, 90s music. That's not what this is about either. But we can take things that have helped us in the past, and they can often be effective to help us now, give us the strength and hope in these difficult times, and that's my point. So we might think nostalgically of our youth, even if, depending on whatever era in which we grew up, that youth included things like war and economic struggles and social issues and various oppressions, too many to name. I'm not being Pollyanna about this, I promise you. Because for me, I do not actually want to go back to the 90s. I have some great memories of my youth there. I still listen to a lot of the music, like that song. I was thinking about it in part because I was introducing my 14-year-old son to some of my music from the 90s. I do very much miss my hometown, Austin, Texas, though it's so different today than it was 30 years ago that I don't know how meaningful that is. But I also know that there's a lot I do not want to return to. I was recently explaining to that same child, my 14-year-old son, that when I was in high school, I didn't know any high schoolers that were openly gay. I had some strong suspicions about some people, most of which turned out to be true eventually, but no one was comfortable being out. Even the few out adults I knew were extremely few. And I think today about how vastly things have changed on that front, to give one example. We could name a dozen other things, perhaps, that are much better now than they were in the 90s. As much of a mixed blessing as technology is, I'm happy with a lot of the technology that has come since the 90s. It's helped me a lot with my work and my life, for instance. So I'm not talking about some message rooted in nostalgia in which we go back to some imagined past, in which we make something, America, for instance, great again in some era in which it was not that great, actually, for instance. But the message I want to send to you is one of taking the hope and the strength and resilience that we might have had at some point in our past. The energy, the verve, the resilience, the idea that things can be better than they are right at this moment. The stories we have seen of great heroes. I serve our church in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Every time I go there, I drive through the battlefield. I think about these things. By the way, I don't choose to drive through the battlefield. You kind of can't avoid it. It covers about 2/3 of the area around Gettysburg. But I do drive through it every time. So what we can take from our past and from the past and bring to our lives today. So don't let go, because all of us have the dreamer's disease. We have great struggles in our world today, and we need all the help we can get, both present and past and future. So may whatever we can bring from our past be a source of hope, strength, and comfort to us in these times. And may we be the ones who bring hope when hope is hard to find. May it be so.